I'm Doug Apple with Wave 94, and it's time for another Wakulla County 4-H podcast. And I have Dr. Rachel Pienta in the studio with us. And before we hear from the kids and their special guest, Rachel, tell us what's coming up in this episode.
Hi, Doug. We have a very exciting episode. Those of you who've listened to our podcast for the last few years know that last spring we interviewed Dr. Scott Engel, who is a senior vice president at University of Florida over agriculture and extension programs. The kids had a great time interviewing him. They talked about Camp Cherry Lake and also the legislative appropriation process and the big ask that Representative Allison Tant was helping us with last year. Well, last year they were successful with their ask in the legislature, so we were able to get some funding to move forward with Camp Cherry Lake renovations. Well, we're not finished. It's a big lift to renovate this camp and really make it a state-of-the-art facility. So this year they're going back to the legislature one more time. So Dr. Scott Engel is leading that charge. 4-H youth are also helping with that when they visit the Capitol. And we also have Representative Allison Tant helping us. Camp Cherry Lake is actually in her legislative district, so it's very much a natural fit. Plus, her entire career, she's been an advocate for youth throughout Florida. So this is a cause near and dear to her heart. So got to just say a quick shout out and thank you to Representative Tant, because without her, we wouldn't have had that strong voice in the legislature. But the kids are going to talk to Dr. Engel about what's been going on with the camp since they last spoke and what's coming up in the future.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's hear this program.
My name is Caden Gray, President of the Future Leaders of Wakulla.
My name is Emily Zach, Secretary of the Future Leaders of Wakulla.
Today, we're excited to welcome back a returning guest to talk about some important updates and the big picture plan happening at Camp Cherry Lake in Madison County. Last year, Emily and I toured the camp and saw firsthand just how much potential this space holds. Since then, a lot has been happening, and today we're diving into what's changed, what's in progress, and what both the near and long-term future looks like for Camp Cherry Lake.
That's right, Caden. Since our last conversation, there's been movement, planning, and visioning around how to continue bringing this diamond in the rough closer to its full potential. We'll be talking about updates to the camp, what's currently being planned, and how Camp Cherry Lake can continue to grow as an accessible, educational space for 4-H youth across the state. We're also excited to zoom out a bit and talk about what's new in the world of agriculture, whether there have been any breakthroughs, new research, or innovations over the past year that could shape how we think about youth education, sustainability, and the future of agriculture in Florida.
We're thrilled to welcome back Dr. Engel from the University of Florida. Thank you for joining us again and for being part of this ongoing conversation about Camp Cherry Lake, agriculture, and what's ahead. Dr. Engel, can you remind our audience what your role is like with the University of Florida and IFAS, and how are you connected to the Florida 4-H program and Camp Cherry Lake?
Well, thank you. And first of all, thanks for the opportunity to come back. I really enjoyed this last year when we did this to talk about what we were planning on doing at Camp Cherry Lake, and now we are actually moving forward, so it's a great time for an update. My role is at the University of Florida is a senior vice president, so I have responsibility for programs like agriculture and natural resources and veterinary medicine and forestry and fisheries, all kind of the things that contribute to our food system in the world around us. So I lead an organization called the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. So we train students for a bachelor's or master's or PhD degree. We conduct a lot of research around the state. We're probably the largest agricultural research organization and a university in the United States. And we extend information through the Extension Service. And part of that is the 4-H program. It's the largest youth development program in the state of Florida. Does a number of incredible things for the state and make sure that we are prepared for the future. And hopefully I get to talk a little more about what some of those things are.
We understand that IFAS has received funding in the past for Camp Cherry Lake. Can you share how that funding was utilized and what improvements or progress it made possible?
Well, we received about $5 million last year from the Florida Legislature. And this was funding sponsored by Representative Allison Tant, a tremendous supporter of 4-H and has done so much for the program. But sponsoring funding to renovate Camp Cherry Lake is been something that is just incredibly special to us. So we have the first half of the money. We need the second half, this current legislative session. And so she has come back to sponsor the second half of the request. But with this money, we're going to do a lot of things. Give you a little bit of background here. Camp Cherry Lake is an important place for young people to go to, both for day and overnight camps. But the camp is in really bad shape. When I talk to some of the old timers who went there 50 years ago, frankly, the camp hasn't changed any since then. Much of it's not air conditioned as well, and so it's just not appropriate for a modern camp. And as a result, a lot of the usage of it has declined over the years. But with the new funding, we're going to be able to renovate the buildings. We're going to renovate and build new cabins. They're going to be air conditioned, by the way, and a lot of places for young people to meet as well. And it won't just be for 4-Hers. We will be able to rent this facility out to community groups, to churches, to football camps, to anyone who needs a place to stay overnight, and great facilities for hosting meetings. So we're building not just a 4-H camp, but a community resource. And we're really grateful to Representative Tant for everything she's done. And we're looking forward to hopefully being successful this year, too.
Were you able to accomplish everything you initially requested with that funding, or were there pieces that had to be delayed?
Well, it takes forever to build things within the university system. It is a slow process. We have to follow all the state guidelines for things like safety, fire safety, disability guidelines. So we're a lot more complicated than just a private builder to do these types of things. So it is a long-term, drawn-out process, but we are getting started now. The first thing we want to do are put in new cabins, because that's what will then give us the opportunity for people to actually spend the night and then use the rest of the facilities during the day for meetings and various other activities. So we don't have all the money yet. As I said, we got about half of it. Hopefully the second half comes this year. But then there are going to be a lot more opportunities. We're not going to go back to the legislature for additional funding. I think the state has done its purpose. Next, we need to be looking to private donors, businesses, individuals of significant wealth who would like to invest in the future of Florida by helping to renovate these facilities. They can put their name on buildings. They can put their name on programs. We're going to have a lot of opportunities for businesses and private individuals to get involved with the renovation of the camp. So the state funding is a big part of it. It's the kickoff part, but it's not done yet.
What makes Camp Cherry Lake unique compared to other camps in Florida, especially within the 4-H system?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, where it's located, it's just a special location, being on water like it is with the water activities. It's a beautiful spot, and it's also in an area where a lot of people have access to it. You know, if a camp is in a remote area where it's just too hard to get there, you can have the most wonderful camp in the world, but if it's too far away, it doesn't work. So it's location, accessibility, the population around it, and just the natural beauty of the area. So it is a very special camp, and that's why I think so many people in this area have held it in reverence for a long, long time. So part of just the land, the water, the landscape, that's what makes it special. But also what makes it special are the people and the programs that we're putting into this. We're going to use this camp for workforce development. We need young people becoming more aware and then preparing for additional training in agriculture. And it's not what most people think about agriculture. It is going to be computer programming. It's going to be flying drones. It is going to be running autonomous vehicles from your office. So things that are very different from what we think about agriculture. But right now we have this perception in Florida and frankly the entire country that agriculture is a very traditional industry like what you thought of 30 years ago. It's not that anymore. It's high tech. It's very complicated. And by allowing young people to learn what it has evolved into soon, hopefully they'll go on and develop careers in agriculture. There are not many young people in Florida or any state that wake up and go, I want to drive a tractor or milk cows all the time. But a lot of young people do wake up going, I want to feed the world. I want to be involved in high technology. I want to be involved in artificial intelligence. These are all things that are what agriculture is now. So this will become a place where we can carry the message to young people that it's not what you thought it was.
Yes, that's so great. Me and Caden went down and we visited the area, and it, like you said, it's so beautiful. And I think the location, accessibility, everything you hit on makes for a really good camp.
I do agree with that. It was a very nice location to walk through. With Camp Cherry Lake being re-envisioned as both a traditional and a learning laboratory for youth career development in agriculture and natural resources, why is that dual purpose important for today's youth?
I talk to young people all the time, and I ask them, what do you want to do? The answer is, well, I want to help people. I want to make a difference. And I say, well, how are you going to do that? And almost invariably, it's, well, I want to be a medical doctor. But that's one-on-one treatment. When you work in agriculture, you're feeding 1,000 people, 100,000 people, 1 million people for some types of commodities. So it's really a way that you can make a difference far beyond what you can with many other disciplines. And it's just not something that most people know about. But it does come back to technology. Agriculture is changing. It's changing faster than I've ever seen in my entire life. I've been in agriculture for over 50 years. I haven't seen this speed of change and the extent of change that is happening right now. So it's hard to keep up. We're passing the mantle off on young people like you. You're going to be the ones who are going to have to understand these technologies and figure out how to use them. And that's what this camp will do. It'll expose you to what these technologies are and hopefully get you excited. And hopefully then you want to go out and be a part of this great industry going forward so that you can feed millions of people based upon your skills and hard work.
While we're waiting on future upgrades, what activities and programs are currently possible at Camp Cherry Lake right now?
Well, you can learn how to fly drones. That's something that's always popular, and it's fun, but it's also critical. A lot of what we do these days in assessing a crop or planting, or if there's damage from a hurricane, like we see regularly in Florida, that's all done with drones or satellites. And so flying drones, interpreting satellite data, and interpreting data from airplanes that may be flying overhead, and images they're taking from those planes, satellites or drones. We can teach you how to do that. Artificial intelligence is a big part of the change in agriculture. It's what's driving change right now. It used to be that, for instance, we did not have a lot of robots in agriculture because the decision making for that strawberry to be picked by a robot, is the strawberry ripe or is it not ripe? It's easy for you and your listeners. It's hard for a robot. How hard do you grab that strawberry with a mechanical hand? Too hard and you squish it, not hard enough, and it falls out. These were incredibly difficult decisions. This is all very, very new, but it wasn't until AI was married up to robotics that we began to be able to use these robots in the field. It's changing very quickly. I thought it was going to take 10 years to get to where we are just 2 years later, and it's even speeding up faster every day, but it's all being driven by AI. Artificial intelligence. And so young people today need to be comfortable using AI because pretty much everything you do, regardless of your profession, you're going to be in school using it. You got to know it. You got to understand it. You got to know its opportunities and its limitations. So that's one of the main technologies we're teaching young people right now is how to use AI. But it goes far beyond that. Things like plant genetics and animal genetics. We used to develop new crop varieties by crossing two plants, one that had a trait, the other one that had another trait, and hopefully the progeny is the perfect plant. If you're working on citrus trees, it takes forever to do that because trees don't grow very fast. So it'd take decades to develop a new citrus variety, which we desperately need because of the citrus greening disease. That's killed off about 95% of our trees in Florida. But that's all being done through genetic technologies now that are complicated. But we need people moving into this area as well because all of our new crop varieties are going to come from these new technologies that your generation is going to have to grab a hold of and run with.
Yeah, I agree. That's so awesome. Like that you guys are providing these activities and programs. Like you said, it's very important, especially since technology is moving so fast. And you're trying to keep up, especially with youth, because, we're going to be bringing up this next generation. So I think that's especially important.
With you mentioning AI being more involved, would you say doing the transition of teaching and learning that was difficult?
We're still in that transition of trying to understand how to utilize artificial intelligence in teaching. I heard just a couple of weeks ago, someone was telling me that students are using AI to write their papers. They told me teachers are using AI to grade the papers. So where's the person in all of this? Where's the learning that's going on? So at the university level, we're indeed struggling with how do we utilize AI in the teaching process. It's here to stay. It's not going away. Students are clearly using it. Teachers are clearly using it as well. But I don't think as a society we have really wrestled with this difficult one enough. It's going to be a big part of education in the future, but we're still looking for ways to make sure we understand how students are using it, how programs are being developed, and how teachers are using it to teach. It's not settled yet.
You mentioned with you being a state building with Camp Cherry Lake that you're held to a standard. So what are specific areas with the camp? Because I know you mentioned the ADA, that kind of stuff. What are the more detailed specifics that you're held up to?
Well, the entire camp has to be accessible to individuals with handicaps. So if you're in a wheelchair, or if you're blind, or if you're hearing impaired, we have to have signage, pathways, other appropriate facilities that can accommodate everyone. That's the right thing to do. And it is something that we believe in because we have to be accessible to everyone because we are a state-supported facility. Safety is paramount for the state. So fire safety, we have to have sprinklers, we have to have extra doors, we have extensive reporting requirements that no one else has to do. All of these things add cost, they add time, they add complexity, but it's part of the process. And when it takes a lot of time to build a facility, sometimes we get criticized for that, of the time it takes to do things. But there are good reasons for all of that. And I hope your listeners will understand why it does take a year to build a building, or sometimes a year and a half to build what seems like a reasonably simple building, such as a dormitory for students or a cabin for students.
I agree. I mean, I'm sure it's complicated to try and figure that all out, but, safety is important.
How will these upgrades improve the camper experience overall?
More modern teaching technologies. So the buildings are all going to have complex whiteboards and automatic whiteboards for teaching, audio-visual equipment. These are pretty expensive facilities now. It's not just, when I was young, it was a blackboard and a piece of chalk. Those days have been gone for 40 years. What was a $10 blackboard and a 5-cent piece of chalk is a couple $100,000 to equip a classroom for appropriate teaching.
Will they allow for new types of camps, programs, or age groups?
Yeah, we have it's maybe not what you expect. We've always focused on youth, young people, from second grade through middle school, sometimes high school. But what we will have are buildings that are appropriate for adults, even seniors. And that's been part of it. We want to have a facility that can accommodate individuals regardless of their age. That goes back to some of the accessibility and handicapped issues. If we're bringing in older groups that probably are more prone to be in wheelchairs or limited sight issues, we will be able to accommodate them. And so it's going to become a facility that, regardless of your age, this will be a great facility to work in. And by the way, these groups, for a lot of them, we're actually going to rent it to them. We're going to make some money. And that money that from the rent, that will be held in the camp and then used as a operating fund to upgrade the camp in the future. What happened and why we got in such bad shape at Camp Cherry Lake is that we never had an income stream. So the facilities degraded over 50 years and we didn't have a fund to improve them. So the state of Florida stepped up and provided that improvement. But what about going into the future? When you have a lot of young people, and they're hard on the camp, hard on the buildings, hard on the facilities, hard on the land. And so we need to have a fund so that every couple of years we can renovate more facilities, fix things that are broken. And so having this income stream by renting it to church groups or maybe some football camps, things like that, that will give us that income stream going into the future so that we don't dig ourselves into the hole that we find ourselves in now.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I think that will definitely help. Like you mentioned, I like that you guys include all ages and, think about that accessibility aspect because that's very important.
How are you making sure Camp Cherry Lake remains true to its 4-H mission while also modernizing?
I like that question too. We are going to remain true to our 4-H roots. 4-H is a program that teaches some very fundamental needs for young people to become leaders of the future. It's things like what you are doing right now, public speaking, organizing your thoughts, organizing your records, speaking to adults in a clear, coherent way, organizing your thinking about how you process information. These are all things that we do through 4-H. You work on projects. A lot of 4-Hers work on showing programs, but the core mission of 4-H is to teach you skills that will make you adults that can become leaders for our society. So that's what we're always going to remain true to. We can provide education around technologies. It can be around showing animals, all the things that we think about for 4-H. But the part that we remain true to are the principles that you learn while you are in 4-H. Again, a lot of the leaders in Florida and many other states went through 4-H. They may have gone through FFA as well, where they learned some similar types of skills. But that's why we, as adults that support these programs, do this. It's to allow you to take over as the next generation for all these important issues that are being handed off to you literally right now.
How will these improvements benefit the broader 4-H community beyond just campers?
Well, the programs that we're developing at Camp Cherry Lake will have application for our other camps, number one, but all of our county-based programs as well. We are going to use Camp Cherry Lake as kind of the test bed for new programming. So developing a program on artificial intelligence, which everyone, regardless of where you live in the state, regardless of your ability to get to Camp Cherry Lake, will need. So we're building out the programs here because this is where we have the facilities, we've got the people, and we'll have the financial support for that. But these programs are going to be diffused all around the state for those young people that aren't lucky enough to get up to Camp Cherry Lake. Because it's going to become the premier 4-H camp in the state of Florida, I think we're going to see all kinds of people flocking there for all kinds of reasons. This is where we will host adult training. We do need to bring our 4-H agents, our 4-H faculty from around the state to somewhere where they can be trained in whatever the programming area, artificial intelligence, for example. So this is where we can do a lot of our own training as well. We'll bring in volunteers for their training to these types of facilities. And we can bring in other leadership groups that, for instance, county leaders or legislative leaders. We will invite them to this facility to show them what we got, what we can do, but also to promote their future support of 4-H.
All right, what is the current projected timeline for these upgrades if the funding is approved?
Well, we have the first half of funding, so we're going to start relatively soon. And in fact, there's been some minor changes already. But more extensive renovation and building should occur coming this spring and this summer. So that's the first half of the funding. If we get the second half of the funding, which we're hopeful that we will, that will extend the process out for an additional year beyond that. So all in all, for the $10 or $11 million that we expect to have from the legislative process, it's going to take about 2 years before we are able to dedicate all of the facilities and close them out. But it's going to be opening stepwise. We'll get some of the cabins done sooner, and we'll be able to get young people in there before that. But I think it's going to be 2 years before we can say we are done.
Many 4-H youth and families would like to advocate for Camp Cherry Lake. What is some advice when they're going to Tallahassee to talk with their legislative officials about this?
I spent a lot of time in Tallahassee asking for financial and legislative support. That's my job. The legislators, when I come in there, I've been there before, I'm there today, I'll be there tomorrow, I ask for a lot on a pretty regular basis. So they get a little jaded because that is my job. But when a 4-H'er comes into the office, like what we will have when we have 4-H Day in Tallahassee, that carries a whole lot more weight. So you and your parents, when you come in and you ask for support of the 4-H program, of Camp Cherry Lake, of other needs that 4-H may have, I can tell you that carries so much more weight than when I do that. I do it on a regular basis because that's my job and I'm organized and I've got all the information. But every one of them will tell me, and they'll tell you when you go to visit them, that being there makes all the difference. So having 4-Hers in the Capitol, carrying these messages, making the request is really what makes all the difference. And I will be very honest with your listeners. I think that's why we've been successful, because 4-Hers have made the pitch, not because of me or anyone else who works for Extension or the University of Florida.
For the 4-H youth going to talk to them, what would be advice you would say about talking to the officials?
Two things. First of all, tell them how 4-H has changed you and your trajectory. What have you gotten out of 4-H? Why do you think it's made a difference in your life? How do you think about the world differently? What skills have you learned because of your time in 4-H? And I mean that from a programmatic perspective, like what you're doing right here with this interview. But then if you have been to any of our camps, but particularly Camp Cherry Lake, talk to them about your experience there. What did you learn? What connections did you make? What friends did you that have remained your friends from the time that you were there? And what skills did you develop at that camp as well? And why that camp was unique for allowing you to develop those skills. You learned things different at camp than you would in one of your club meetings or in school.
Looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, what is on the horizon for the Florida 4-H program as a whole?
First of all, we do want to continue to renovate our 4-H camps. Now, we're not going back to the legislature to ask for more money, but we're also not done. We need more support. And so we are hoping that 4-Hers, working with some of the professionals that we have in our college and in Extension, can start a private fundraising campaign as well. There are lots of things that can be done at Camp Cherry Lake that are not going to be complete with the legislative support that we have. So there's more money to be raised, and it's going to be the same thing. Right now, you go and visit with the legislator and ask for $5 million. We'd like you to find a corporation or an individual of immense wealth. Ask them for $5 million too. It seems a little intimidating, but I do it every day. Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised that there are a lot of people in a state like Florida that have significant wealth, that think about the future, and it's your job to convince them that 4-H is a way to craft the future and to shape the future. Mm-hmm. And that with their support, we can build programs and we can build facilities that will allow those changes to happen.
So we are going to wrap it up. So is there anything you would like to add or ask us?
Well, there are lots of challenges in Florida. This is a really complicated state. I've lived in states all around the country. I have maybe California, but I have yet to find another state that is as complicated as Florida. The diversity of the people, the diversity of the land, the politics of the state. I'm a soil scientist. The soils are complicated. Agriculture is complicated. We have 300 plus crops in Florida. When you're in Iowa, you got corn, wheat, and soybeans. It's a lot simpler to manage. But here's my question to you. What skills do you think you need to become an agricultural leader? Is it communication? Is it technical knowledge? What, at your age and your place in life, you're obviously ambitious and want to be a leader. What can we do for you to allow you to become that leader?
I would say, the biggest thing is definitely if you want to be a leader, you got to learn leadership and communication. But going outside the basics, I would say having more knowledge within the area, because if you want to help lead others, you want to be knowledgeable yourself before you try and help others.
So that's one of the questions that we continually ask in 4-H. What are those areas? Do you want to learn more about artificial intelligence or plant genetics or animal genetics or food safety or how to prepare food? We have culinary arts programs and food processing expertise, economics expertise. What technical areas do you think that you need to learn more about? Is it genetics or economics, or clearly communication is one that you see as a critical skill? And that's no matter what job you have, communication is maybe the most important skill. What do you want to study when you go to college?
I want to do music education or anything like with music?
That can be agriculture too. We sponsor at the University of Florida a program where we look at the convergence of agriculture and art. So it can be music, it can be poetry, it can be the written word, it can be a painting, it could be a play. We haven't had that before. You can write songs about agriculture and support the industry that way. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I know I've definitely played a few pieces. They dedicate pieces and they write them. And a few of the composers they have about a certain state or like the land or like the history or heritage that comes with people on the land. So I get that.
Tell the story of agriculture, of the people of agriculture, of the struggles and the challenges and the opportunities.
Yeah, that's what I like about music. It can make you, feel something and can tell a story like you said. So
And sometimes that way of communicating affects more people than a lecture or
for sure.
Or a class. How about you?
I will be going to study forensic science, so I can try to be a crime scene investigator with FDLE. So I think I would assume, honestly, agriculture might be needed with that if, it's in a woodsy area.
So lots of opportunities in agriculture for forensic sciences. I'll give you two good examples. First of all, when a body is buried in the forest, it decays at a particular rate, and from the observations on decay, you can understand a lot of the crime scene and how all this went down. And then secondly, you've all seen this on crime TV shows where you're looking for insects that are on the corpse. And so entomology is the study of insects. It has a whole section on forensic sciences related to crime scene investigation. So you need to know your bugs, and you need to understand soils and how things decompose in soil. So lots of connections there to agriculture as well. But let me just come back to mostly communication. No matter what you do, how you tell a story, how you craft the story in a way that non-experts can understand, that comes first. It could be music, it can be forensics. You got to be able to tell a good story, and your work with listeners right now is helping you to become a good communicator. And so, Caden and Emily, I know that you have both been accepted into a program to give a podcast production at the National 4-H meeting coming up in March of this year. I think it's going to be in Washington, D.C. So congratulations on doing that. That's a great honor. Obviously, they have heard some of your podcasts, and they want to come watch you do this in person and really to celebrate what you have accomplished. So really proud of what you're doing, and have a great time in Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much. We're so excited that we were accepted and that we get to go to Ignite. So it's going to be really exciting.
It will be. I think it was a little bit of a shock, but, I think we're ready to be able to teach others how to do podcasting as well.
It's a great skill. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you again for joining us today.
I'm Emily.
I'm Caden, and that wraps up another episode of the Wakulla County 4-H podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about the exciting developments happening in our community. Remember, whether you're a camper, volunteer, or supporter, there's always a way to get involved and make a difference.
Thanks for listening, and a special thank you to our guest, Dr. Engel, for taking the time out of his busy schedule to share all of the really amazing things happening with us today. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and follow us on social media for all the latest updates from Wakulla County 4-H. Until next time, keep learning, growing, and making a positive impact in your community. Take care.
You've been listening to another edition of the Wakulla County 4-H podcast. And just to put a bow on it, we're with Dr. Rachel Pienta. What are some final comments you would have?
Wow, Doug, what an amazing podcast. I don't know if you feel the way I do, but every time I listen to the youth interview someone, I learn so much. And Dr. Engel is just an amazing person to interview because his knowledge of agriculture and 4-H is so robust, and he always just brings so much to the table, and he stays current on so many of the trends coming in those fields that I just listen and start taking notes and have to Google things because I want to learn more. So I hope that you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did and that you'll continue listening to the Wakulla 4-H podcast. And if people have ideas about folks that they want us to interview, we would love to hear from you. You can reach us at the Wakulla Extension office. You can call our office at 850-926-3931. You can also find us on Facebook. Wakulla 4-H has a Facebook page. Feel free to message us there. And also, you can go to the Wakulla Extension website. Just Google Wakulla Extension. It'll come up. You'll see a directory. You can send me an email. We would love to hear from you. Tell us your thoughts about the podcast. Give us suggestion for future podcast topics. We'd love to talk to you. So thanks for this opportunity, Doug, and can't wait to do the next one.
And remember, you can subscribe to the Wakulla County 4-H podcast on your favorite podcast app.